Welcome to the September 5th. Excuse me, I always say it wrong. The September 9th, 2024 meeting of the Economic Development Industrial Corporation. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Starting off, if we would all rise, thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'm going to ask the EDIC board members if we can get some business done before. So we have an agenda, by the way. If you need a copy, I have it. You can pass it around. I have some other handouts, not a lot. I tried to make extras. I obviously didn't make enough for everybody, but we do have some. The first item on the agenda after the pledge is review minutes of August 12th. Let me just run over this real quick. 2 is Brownfield's overview discussion. 3 is working group for digital signage discussion. 4 is old business quotes for legal services, market assessments, and actually civil engineering also, which I have a packet. And then public comments, and then board member comments for other stuff later. Next meeting and then adjournment. So that's what's going on tonight. I'm going to ask the board if we could do the business, because I think the Brownfield stuff deserves more time. And I don't want to rush through that. I want to give it, that's okay. So could we take review of the minutes and then go to the working group, which I can summarize in 3 sentences, and I'm going to ask Steve to jump in and then deal with the quotes. We have 3. I'd like to get the business out of the way and then just have a discussion. Okay. All right. Wonderful. Thank you very much. So this shouldn't take too long, folks. So I'm sorry about that, but we do have to do some business too. I gave you a couple of packets. Minutes first. So this is the hard copy, but you should all have copies. Does anybody have, please review them if you haven't already. If you have any question, comments, concern, edits, speak in the next couple of minutes or forever hold your peace. Once we adopt them, I would ask the clerk to sign the back of this one for Lori's files.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I move to accept the meeting minutes for the EDIC from August 12th, 2024.
Is there a second on that?
Second up.
Any discussion on the motion to accept the minutes of, let me try to get the date right this time, August 12th, 2024. All those in favor? Steve, can I start with you? Or are you still reading?
Still reading, so.
No, then I'm going to hold off. No worries.
If others want to vote, I'll be done in a minute.
No, take your time. No. Let's make sure, because if you have any thoughts, we should do it under discussion, not, I don't want to jumpstart with the votes. No worries.
I'm okay.
You're okay?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. Ann gave me a vote. Mike
Yes.
and Liz?
Yes.
The chair will make it unanimous. Thank you very much. So on to item number 3, working group for digital signage discussion.
Can we go back for one thing? Just
Yeah, go ahead.
just the fact that we do have a quorum, but
Yes,
Vicky is not present tonight.
right. Share
Just-
clerk?
No.
Is that what you're saying it, or?
We technically don't have one. We've been.
Okay. Have you been signing them on our behalf,
Well,
Mike?
One of us has been.
And I
yes.
have, maybe I signed one?
Yep.
Okay,
So
so
I just want to make sure that the minutes call out that fact that she's not.
that's true. That's true. We do have a quorum, 4 out of 7, but Vicky, our 5th member, is not here tonight. And we still have 2 open slots. I just want to slide that in as well. Exactly.
Just a
Yes, Mike, please.
question. So
Yeah.
I noticed that we're mentioning guests now. I don't know if your intent is to list everybody that comes to the meeting.
I had never even thought of that, but please continue.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
Julie was at the meeting, but she didn't, you didn't call her before the edict because she had business. So when I see guests, I
okay.
agree. I watched, I wasn't here for that meeting, but I watched it
Okay, yep.
in its entirety. I just want to, going forward, are you going to include everybody that comes to the meeting?
I think we should, as a public body. It's not a bad idea. So based on that, can I pass around a sign-in sheet to
Yeah.
the folks, something like that? Would you be willing to sign in as guests, that would be good for our minutes, be good for our records. Thank you.
I will pop and I'll go find that.
You want to go find a sign-in sheet or a notepad? I
I'll-
didn't bring my notepad in. I just would have
Thank
handed
you,
it.
please. Let me get let me just quickly, I'll get a clipboard.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Name, address, blood type, whatever you want. We'll keep it simple. Terry. Yeah.
Speaking of the last meeting,
Yeah.
happy anniversary. Is it your anniversary? I thought, no, yours was the last, but I thought you had this meeting. It
Yours
was
is-
your turn.
October.
So that's when you're gonna have,
Yeah.
that you were meeting on.
Don't quiz me on, if my wife is watching, don't ask me how many years it's been right now. It'll be 31. I just have to do the math correctly the first time.
It's October.
I actually, when her birthday is in May, and while we wait for I'll bore you with a husband and wife story. So her birthday is May 22nd. And this year,
Don't say how old she is.
I was just about to, I guess I won't. So on May 25th, I put Tori's something birthday, and I put a year down. So not only did I get the day wrong, because it's the 22nd, not the 25th, and I got the year wrong. It was in like next year's birthday. She has still not let me forget about that. Anyway, Glenn learned from his mistake. That's my real point. Sorry about that, hon.
So now you get a month to plan. To make up for your.
Yeah, and so she took a bad fall. We talked about 10 days ago. So if she can walk, we're gonna go somewhere. She's fine. She's fine. She's fine. It could have been a lot worse.
Do you have a pen handy also?
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, sure.
Well, Mike does that and he's in the room and we have a quorum again. Was bantering with somebody or Steve or somebody else, and I was thinking, and so I want to turn it over to Mike to you in a second about this working group.
You only need to
digital signage.
Put your number.
So to get everybody, I guess, from my point of view, we're back up to speed. So we've talked about several times over several meetings since we started signage in the community that we could use the grant to pay for, to get signage out there to say businesses go that way. You know, we want to promote the businesses and communities when they're, welcoming into the community, and, ABC businesses that way, and, DEF is over there and so on and so forth. So that conversation has touched on, do we do the MASH sign from MASH 4077 in the middle of the compound? Do we do digital signs? Or the kind of signs are a combination? So we'd like to move forward and use this grant funding to pay for the signage. But doing signage is a lot. I mean, we would need to spend a lot of hours in that, like us, and then pulling other resources as we can. So I think I suggested to Steve, I'm not sure, or someone else, I just don't remember right now. And Steve's been bringing forward a lot of tech information. And who's your digital signage guy on?
I'm Alex Harrison.
Alex Harrison was at a meeting several months ago with us to explain a little bit more about digital signage and so on and so forth. But just deciding on what kind of sign or signage you want to do, even if you only do one, what kind of place, you got to meet the sign bylaw. Where's it going to go? How much is it going to cost? Do quotes, but there's the tech and then there's the installation. So either I or Steve was thinking out loud, I don't remember. Hey, if we could just have a working group of the EDIC that could take this on, which comes down to 3 of the 5 board members just addressing this. I have a committee, public meeting. This is not, we're not allowed to do this stuff behind closed doors, and I hate that idea. But I think it needs more time on that issue than us talking about it once every 60 days. Also, the last thing I want to say, and then which is boring and administrative, is so we have the town of Templeton has a $200,000 state economic development grant, and it has come to the town. And basically, I know, Mike, you're working on an agreement between the EDIC
Yes,
and the board, right?
Yep.
Okay, so the bottom line is the town has this grant, and we're advising the town, being the EDIC, where we should spend funding. And I have a copy of a budget here. If somebody wants to see the budget, we can show you that. And we've talked about doing signage because we want to promote the businesses, get more people in the restaurants, the retail stores, the whatever, employee retention, job creation, all that good stuff. So we would be advising the Board of Selectmen of what to do, but I think we just need to spend more time on it. So that's where I'm coming from. I just think we need some people to go and from the board to spend a lot of time on this. And a lot doesn't mean 100 hours by Christmas. A lot means we need to have somebody focusing on this. Steve, am I on the right track? Am I
Yeah,
way
you
off?
and I did have this conversation.
We did,
You
okay.
Suggested a working group to get going, and we are working on a business plan for the digital signage. We've got some quotes and some revenue projections in on it, but it's still a little bit early. We're hoping to have that by October. By the time we meet in October, to have that pretty well finished, but I know we're under a constraint to have contracts for EDIC done by the end of the year.
By December 31, 24, and all funds then have to be expended by June 30, 26. I think it's June 3rd.
So it may be a good idea to have, 3 of us on it and kick some ideas around and see what we can come up with.
Does anybody want to volunteer of the 3? You want to volunteer to be on that?
I will.
Mike, you want to be on, or do you want us to ask Vicky, and I'm happy to serve if nobody else can't get a third.
I'd be happy to.
Okay, so the three of you are going to volunteer to be on the working, okay, that's wonderful. So working group for digital signage. And if you're all willing to do so, then would anybody be willing to make a motion to create a working group for digital signage? A first and a second discussion, and then we'll take a vote. Deal?
So moved.
You want to move it? Okay, so Liz makes the motion. Mike, you seconded? Yep. Any discussion on the motion officially?
What's the product at the end of the working group?
So in one word, like everything, like,
Just
if
a Word
it's going to be,
document?
a Word doc, yeah,
Okay.
is the physical product
I just-
that covers the who, what, where, why, when, how much.
Got it.
Honestly, from the old journalism world, if you will, just covering all the points. And then certainly touching on the issue of, well, if we have this style sign, if it's going to be this, we have, maybe you're going to come back with 3 options, this committee,
Mhm.
by November, so we can go to bid and get something done, or October, whatever it is. So, you're under kind of a constrained timeline to answer all the questions that we have, the building inspector, so we can get a building permit, right? What
Mhm.
does he have to say? And then budget issues, design, and then installation. So Liz, go ahead.
And depending upon where it is.
Yeah.
Right? If,
Yeah.
if it's on the common,
Mm-hmm.
it has to also go in front of Parks and Rec at this point.
All the permitting procedures. So if if you can, put like the permitting procedures, there are 10 steps. It would be helpful to know in one document, what are they? And I think we have said before, just because we have guests in the room tonight, I'm pretty sure we've said before, if we're going to go digital signage, we don't want to put this on any historic district property. We don't want to do that to our town. So we want to keep that character. So I think that's important for all us to know, for us all to know. Any other discussion, thoughts, questions? So for first and second, so the motion's no other discussion. All those in favor, Steve, you want to go first?
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
and I'll make it unanimous. So that's unanimous around what, 6:13? All right, thank you. So we had old business. I brought it forward because of the deadline to get quotes out there for services. And so the packet that looks like this, it's got a 4 in the upper right-hand corner. In here, I'm going to go page by page just to explain what's in the packet first. So first of all, the top page is the Chapter 30B manual, securing supplies, services, and real property, pages 25 to 29. So here's the manual. And I looked at it recently, re-looked at it today over lunch, and put this together. You have to have a written purchase description, a rule for reward. You seek 3 written quotes, which doesn't mean only go to 3 people, but send it out to 10 to try to get 3. Determine the best price quote from the responsible vendor and award the contract, and 5 retained records. Those are just headers for what's in here, pages 25 to 29. I just want to let you know that I did due diligence and follow the state statute. And the state statute does talk about what your guesstimated budget is. So in the budget for our state contract, it says $45,000 for, let me go right to it. Let me say this right the first time. By the way, the budget is at the end or near the end of this packet, number 4. There we go. So market assessment, 45 grand. Industrial park siting, which is civil engineering, it's 45 grand. Marketing and advertising, which we've morphed into signage, digital signage attraction, 45 grand. So if you're within $10,000 to $50,000, you can seek quotes according to the state statute. So that's why we're doing these things. And that's why I summarized them here, and I followed that to come up with these documents. Pages 2 and 3 talk about, it's a draft request for quotes for legal services, because the EDIC, we want to make sure we have an attorney on board. Because if we, interpreting the state statute that enables the EDICs in Massachusetts to questions of land development, redevelopment, whatever they are, you need an attorney when you do that stuff. That same template I took and tried on pages 4 and 5 to make sure that I did edit, replace from legal services to civil engineering services. So if you see any typos, it's me, it's Scrivener's error. I screwed up the copy paste. And then the third one, which is offset and single and alone, which I forgot to do when I stapled this packet. All right. So that says draft request for quotes from market assessment services. So these 3 things, seeking quotes, reflect what's in the budget for go out and get people hooked up and hire the consultant / contractor. They're really consultants, if you will, to do certain things. I will highlight by going back to the first one, the page on page 2, legal services, guidance concerning compliance with the relevant state statute. In other words, 121C. We had a little discussion earlier. assistance with future procurements, contracting guidance with land development, and redevelopment for the purpose of advancing economic. So it's broad, but kind of specific. It's like, we need help in this area. And then the rule of award, bottom of page 2, top of page 3. I'll summarize the other two, then I'm going to shut up. The other two for civil engineering services, scope of services, working with the EDIC and local officials and other people to identify land favorable for commercial industrial development, while supporting expansions of business, job creation, blah, 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 blah. Complete focus feasibility studies. So the report, what we need for these people, complete focus feasibility studies of each area prioritized to identify absolute and partial constraints, obtaining land acquisition costs, estimating on-site and off-site infrastructure costs, listing traffic impacts, estimating the number of jobs, and then give us like concise reports. And then the last one, market assessment. You can write 10 pages on a market assessment. When you send these to firms in Massachusetts and elsewhere to do a market, they know what you need. However, we need to flesh this out. I can do that. I just ran out of time to add a few more bullets to page 7, scope of services, market assessment. Well, what is our market to certain kinds of industry? And this is basically how you get it done. They conduct appropriate research concerning demographics, the potential for job growth, given the state's vision for economic growth. They look at our model examples from North Central Mass Chamber and from the State of Gardner, and then they issue a report for the EDIC to be used by the town and EDIC. But they have to do it in context of, well, what's in our town's master plan? What's in the Montezut Regional Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy? So they have to do research, okay, and to figure out where we're positioned. A community that's on 2 and 495 is differently geographically positioned for certain industries than a Templeton, than an Orange, than a Great Barrington, than a Boston. And that's what we need them to do. Steve, I was done. Yes, sir.
Do not have the legal or civil engineering.
Take mine. Oh, wait a minute. I have an extra.
Oh, thank you, Mike.
Here, let me give that to Mike. Excuse me, Liz. Thank you.
Thank you again.
In the packet, the 5 pages that are relevant out of the state procurement manual are here. If anybody had any questions. And then, like I said, I put in the attachment A to the contract with the state that has the budget. So I'm just trying to get this kind of paperwork stuff done, go out to quote, get the quotes in, and then we can say, okay, ideally in about 30 days, issue these as soon as possible, give them about 8 to 10 days, working days, business days to respond. Quotes, you can do it in 3 to 5 business days, but I think in this cases with these kind of more complex kind of services, you'd want to give them a little more time. So at max 2 weeks, and then ideally come back within 30 days or less and say, okay, we approve these, we don't, let's move forward. So that's the gist. Please, Liz?
How, is there any overlap with, and I'm thinking the marketing
Mhm.
specifically,
Yeah.
any overlap with what we already have out that's being worked on, which
Mhm.
is, it's not the town master plan, but it's basically the EDIC.
Oh, the one with MRPC to do an economic development plan. So they're
Right.
different plans.
Okay,
They
so
speak
how-
to different issues.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, because I'm sitting here going.
Yeah.
Isn't there some,
There are connections.
there
There
are
are
connections, but not overlap?
Not really. The only
Okay.
overlap I can think of is that the MRPC staff, if they're engaged, they will look at demographics. Okay, well, we've already done that because we just, at the office, we just created the region-wide comprehensive economic development strategy. So really a lot of demographics has already been done. A market assessment firm will look at demographics, but if they're smart, they're just going to call MRPC and say, you just did all the research, give it to us. It's a public document. We work in the public sphere. That's about the only overlap in some research task or two. And then the products are different. Like you'll have a plan for what to do for the next 10 years. The market assessment answers the question, what types of businesses should Templeton go after if we wanted to smokestack chase or encourage the growth of existing? So the outputs are different.
All
Yeah,
right.
that's a great question. I didn't think of that.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Yeah, Mike, please.
I think these are well written. And it's a request for proposal, so you don't know what you're gonna get back.
Right.
This is within scope of the order that created us. And it's within budget. You have a section on all of these that I think actually helps us until we actually, we don't have bylaws or otherwise yet, or we don't have that memorandum to say, how do we want to interact with the town?
Right.
Here's the saving grace in the how you wrote these. This request for quote is legal services has been issued by the select board on behalf of Templeton's Economic Development Industrial Corporation.
Yes,
So
yes,
we
because you
take,
guys are in
we
charge.
take these.
Yep.
We get on the agenda for the select board
Mhm.
and ask them to issue them.
Okay, great. So that's the next procedural task.
Yep.
Oh, fine.
Which is
Fine.
2.5 weeks out.
Okay, that's,
I'm
that's
just,
fine.
because you were talking about timeline.
That's fine.
Right.
I will add,
Yes, yes.
yeah, I will add that, well, I met with the town administrator on this issue. And I said, you're the chief procurement officer. Are you going to take this on or do you want us to do it? He said, just do it yourselves. I don't need to worry about this. I said, that's fine. So that's why I wrote some of this stuff.
Well, I
Because
mean, this,
he told me EDIC sent it out, but it's the
this
select board.
whole corporation is doing something that the select board created an order for.
It should go to,
And it has to go,
Yeah.
because it's written that way.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
select board's not gonna issue,
right,
if the select board, and I am the chair.
yes,
If the select board knew that something was issued under their authority.
Right.
Without them actually
Right.
voting on it.
exactly. It's communication. That's the bottom line.
But this actually goes.
Yeah,
And says, hey, you created an order for us to go do these things.
Yeah.
Here's our plan or part of our plan, and here are the data points for these items.
yep,
We would like to go do this.
Right.
It's within scope, it's within budget.
Yep.
Could you please issue these?
plus this.
Because we don't, we're not doing that.
Right,
I know Lori's watching the meeting or otherwise, but it's basically that authority to say, select board, if you agree, could you issue that?
let's rock and roll. Can you give me the date for the next select board meeting? So do you guys meet on Monday, Tuesday? I don't
No,
remember.
it's Wednesday. The next one is Wednesday night.
All of
This
you
is
know but
Wednesday
me.
night.
I'm sorry.
it's too.
That's what I'm saying.
Too close.
And it's too close. It's within the.
Oh, that's fine. So when's
48
the,
hours.
so when's
They're,
the next one we can reasonably get it on the agenda? I guess that's the question.
Yeah, well, so you're
The
sitting.
October 9th. Or, I mean, your husband says it quite frequently. If we need to meet before that, then we can call a special meeting.
So that's up to
And
you.
if we're on a timeline, then we can do that.
Okay, so I'm gonna take my direction from you or Adam on when to get,
I think as
when to get.
the EDIC,
Yeah.
if we want to get, if the interest is to get these things out the door, then we
Yeah.
would ask them, can you have a special meeting?
Excuse me, Mike.
Yeah.
Were you, because you moved your retreat up, were you gonna meet on the 25th regularly? I thought that was gonna be.
Well, it's not
Retreat.
scheduled there, so
Okay.
it's supposed to be 2 a month, and you're right, I don't see it
EDIC
there.
Please
Just to
ask the
call
Board
that
of Selectmen for a
conversation
meeting
at the
date.
select board meeting. I
It's
don't know.
not scheduled
got
yet,
it.
so I don't know.
Okay.
So if I could
Go ahead, please.
put forward, I don't know, put forward, I want to make a motion that we actually request a special one-off,
Mhm.
single topic meeting for the select board to be able to approve, assuming they, bring it in front of the board, assuming that they would approve it. And get this out the door. As I said in the last meeting, I feel like we need to get moving, we need to get stuff done.
Yep.
And the sooner we do, the better. We are on a timeline.
Mhm.
I mean, we may have some wiggle room there, but we are on a timeline, so I would like to make that motion that we request a standalone single agenda item.
So there's a first, is there a second to the to Liz's motion? Ask the Board of Selectmen to hold a meeting on this issue.
I'll second it.
So second, Steve.
Thanks.
Steve's got it. Any discussion on the motion on the floor or on the table?
I have some questions
Sure.
about this, if I can.
Go for it. Go for it.
So because we're going to the select board, does that mean we have 3 paragraphs in all of these that say Templeton's EDIC is managing the procurement process under the direction of the town administrator? Will advise the town administrator and select board is responsible for accepting or rejecting.
That'll have to be changed. In the context of this conversation, that'll have to be all edited or altered. Because I was going by what Adam told me to do, and then it's like, so we'll just wordsmith it. We'll just change it.
I don't even
Which
think.
is the
I don't
paragraph? I'm
think
sorry.
it's on page 2
Yeah.
or the second page of the items.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that, I mean, is it almost, it's not contradictory, it's almost contradictory. I see what your point is, Steve.
No, I actually think it works now, because
Yeah.
I wasn't realize we were gonna go to the select board. I thought
I mean-
we were under
It's that one key
Adam's
thing.
advisement to Glenn not to. That's why I questioned it.
I think until we've got our own bylaw, we're operating like the town is providing us
Yeah, that's
with,
fine.
but if we go
Yeah.
back and
Yeah.
say to the select board, we're doing what you asked us to do in that order.
Right.
Here it is. Could,
Yeah.
and we're using that process.
Yep.
The select board can,
Right.
make a decision whether they want to approve that or say, no, we'd rather you do it, you're on your own.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
That's my take.
Okay, so do we leave these three RFQs intact as they are? And I'll leave the word draft on them. I emailed the PDF or the Words documents to Adam. And say, based on the meeting last night at 6 o'clock, we took a motion to ask the select board to have a special meeting for this item, and we'd like a blessing ideally.
The motion on
Please
it
give
now
us a
is
date.
to ask the select board for a special. That's what the motion is
Yep.
out there right
Okay.
now, not on the actual content.
Right, exactly. But in the email to Adam, I just want to give him some more context.
We make a motion for that too.
Yeah, is that sufficient, or do we need more guidance, more? Or,
Guidance on the narratives, you're saying?
Let's vote on that, basically saying we're gonna take this and then we can vote to say that we agree with these and we're ready to go to the select board
Sure.
and say, would you please proceed with these?
So the motion was
I
table is
like
just to
them.
ask for a
I
special
do
meeting.
like these documents. I think
Okay.
they're sufficient. Remember, it's just for question and quote.
Yeah, within
If they
10 to
go out
50
there
grand.
and then we get the data back. Basically, the town administrator receives the answers back
Yep.
and then we are able to look at them
Right,
in accordance with our meetings.
exactly.
and we'd be the ones that would be reviewing the quotes.
Mhm.
Right.
Yep.
The select board is just basically saying, yes, I authorize you to go out for.
To go out.
Yes,
And they're the awarding authority, the select board, the entity is the awarding authority, which it says in here. I think.
we would go back to them and say that we recommend
recommend.
these.
Yeah.
Until we get that MOA with them to say, this is how we want to operate and
Right.
we, EDIC and the town, we would like to do this. We would like go direct to the town administrator
Yeah.
for these things. That order basically gives us our marching orders.
So right now it's just about asking for a certain day. Oh, you did have your hand up, Steve. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Just
sir.
a follow-up. So what are we gonna do about the digital marketing RFQ?
I was
that
just
went out?
thinking about it.
You're gonna have to write it real quick.
This is
so
more
we can-
time sensitive than that. I think we'll have something. I'll have something for the next meeting on the MOA.
I thought we decided to, well, the digital marketing RFQ, I thought we decided to issue it.
We did.
Yeah, we did.
It's already out.
But in the context of this conversation,
Is that language, then that's problematic.
It doesn't have that language,
Okay.
then just issue it.
yeah.
So we're okay on the
Oh,
other.
I just have another follow-up question, and this is.
I
not-
kept reading that order
Yeah.
and we were tasked for that. We just didn't have the ability to be able to create our own. There's no, in the order that created this corporation, there is not a component to say, and the town will provide this amount of service for it.
Right,
That's why I
right.
think we go back and say,
Yeah.
hey, could you issue these on our behalf?
Right.
Um,
But digital marketing can go out.
However, the EDIC in, I don't know, it's like page 6 in the section of what you're able to do, like we can carry debt.
Oh,
we
the
can do
powers and
these
duties
things.
section. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, yes, sir.
So I think you're still covered under that. It's
Okay,
basically
okay.
asking for that. The way that this is written, if you say has been issued by the select board on behalf of the edict, then you
Right.
should do it that way.
Right. I think we should. And I wrote that on purpose.
I think it was
Because-
good. I think that was. an
Because I
excellent
was
way
trying to
write it.
take what Adam told me to do, like just go do it. But then at the same time, we have no control of the funds. We can't contract with anybody. It really is up to the select board. So,
Just another.
keep
question.
keep going. Yes, sir.
This is my last one. So in the draft request for quotes for market assessment services.
Yeah.
The scope of services, number 2. You are completing all necessary tasks completed in such reports as produced by the North Central Mass Chamber of Commerce, City of Gardner, and other relevant examples.
Yes.
Are you citing those entities specifically that you want their experience with?
Yeah, because because those are the most recent ones in the region that I was aware of. And they are geographically the closest that I could find also. There may be others, but I don't know about them yet, and I can do some more research.
I just wonder if you want to word it as examples, such as.
Well, and other relevant examples.
Yeah,
At
that's
the
what it
end.
says.
But you want them to have necessary tasks completed for the North Central Mass Chamber of Commerce and City of Gardner?
Well, we can do other
Specifically?
relevant examples as directed by the EDIC for the final report, something like that. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
just
Before you
wanted-
sign a before you sign a contract, you can add that
Yeah,
specificity.
yeah, we
This
put
is-
that in the contract.
Okay,
I think this gets it out the door and we wind up getting,
Yeah.
nibbles.
Yeah, exactly. And You know, there's a large statewide corporation, a private entity that does a lot of this market assessment work. And they may or may not get the job, but I believe that company did both of these. And they're a good model. They've been around for longer than I have. And so they're good templates to look at. And that's all this really.
Can someone get the job without having done work for the North Central Mass Chamber of Commerce? And
Oh, yeah, yeah,
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah,
Okay.
because anybody can bid on this, put in a dollar figure for, it's an hourly rate of what we're looking for. Plus, give us a sample of their work. kind of thing.
Okay, I get it.
Yeah, absolutely. None of these are
That
targeted.
was the way I was reading it.
Okay, and that's emergency procurement. There's nothing emergency. This is regular, open, fair, free
I'm good.
competition bidding. So you're good. So did I ask for a vote
No,
on?
you
I
haven't
didn't, I'm
yet.
sorry,
It
I
was
wasn't
about-
sure.
No, we were still in discussion.
Just, Steve had some questions. Are we good to take the vote, I think?
I'm good.
Mike?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
his questions were more about a motion that saying, yes, these are good, let's
Yeah.
go forward with them. We'll make that in a second
Right.
right now.
Yeah,
Liz's-
let's just-
Liz's motion is just to ask the select board to meet.
Glenn, email Adam for a special date. I think that's what this is all about.
Yep, and these would be the agenda items.
All right, all those in favor, Liz,
Yes.
on this special date motion, Mike, Steve,
Yes.
and I'll make it unanimous. Okay, great. So does somebody else want to, or anybody want to make a motion?
I make,
The
I
other
make a
motion that we
motion
need.
for the three RF requests for quotes to be considered by the select board and issued thereafter.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on this motion? We're good? All those in favor, Liz? No, you started to say something. I don't want to
No,
roll over
no,
you.
No, you're not rolling over me. Don't worry.
You never would allow that anyway, but
No.
I'm just saying. No.
No, I'm just thinking, state your motion again? It was,
For the three.
Yeah.
Draft request for quotes to be transmitted to the select board for approval.
yes. I'm good.
You're
Yes,
good?
As presented.
yes, that's percent. Yes, I'm good.
To, as presented, thank you.
That was the motion.
I know Lori's
Who
taking notes, but I
seconded?
want to take some too. Okay,
Did someone second it?
We did.
Okay.
yes, yes. Any other discussion? I don't see Liz's lips moving, so I'm gonna start with her for a vote.
This is marketing, this is
Okay, civil engineering
Civil
services, a
engineering
market assessment
and legal.
and legal attorney
All
services.
three things that we need to be able to,
Yes,
hand in hand, move forward.
yeah. They're a part of our team to say, okay, what are we gonna do? We
Yep,
think we're
this
gonna
is
do this.
data collection. These aren't projects. This is
No.
data collection.
No, this
Yep.
is, and ideally over the next, 90 days, we'll start to create some projects, but saying, well, what if we do that? What if we do this?
Yeah, this is all the framework.
Yeah.
That'll be
Yeah.
supported by our
Yeah.
plan.
You need a team of local officials, the consultant team to
Yep.
move this
Can't do
forward.
it without them.
Bingo. I'll ask for votes then. Liz,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
I'll make that unanimous. Okay.
All right, we've had that discussion.
Well done.
Thank you all. Yes. Shoot.
Financial, finance,
Mhm.
the accountants that we need.
So I remember saying and pushing it for 6 months that we need an accountant, we need an accountant, we need an accountant. And then several meetings ago, I said, we don't need one because we're not in control of the funds. The town has an
Okay,
accountant.
good.
I'll
Okay.
include it.
So- Yeah.
I
So
just-
they're in
okay,
charge
okay.
of they're in charge of those funds. If for some reason, when, not if, but when this EDIC gets up and running, and let's say it gets financial resources from wherever the universe, and it has to pay bills for whatever you could think of, then at that time, we'll have to have a discussion with select board, town
Yeah,
accountant, you
there's a
guys,
surety.
to see if we
that
need to have our own
in our
or not.
order, It mentions that each of us
Right.
have to have a surety.
Sureties.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, but the
So
bottom line
we'll
is,
get there.
we'll need our own bank account eventually.
I just wanted
So,
to make
yeah.
sure we did not need to cover that now.
No, thank you. No, but there was more, you deserved more.
All right, I'm good.
So we took all the votes. So we took care of officially. Okay, we did the pledge, we reviewed minutes, we did the working group for digital signage, we did all business for the three consulting requests for quotes to get them out, go to the select board, get ideally obtain approval and then move forward. So now we're going to item 2, which is Brownfields. So I do have just a very brief statement, and I do have a few of these that I can hand out. I just keep only one. Just stuff I got off on, so. So this is Brownfield's item number 2. Just want to
Yeah.
double sure.
It's number
Thank you.
2.
That's
Yeah,
item number
Mr.
2.
Chair, you could probably even, for people in the audience that have like handheld devices or a computer, you could, this is, if you Google mass.gov, Introduction to Brownfields Cleanup and Redevelopment. You could follow along. All he did was print.
Can I ask you for your indulgence? There are at least 3 hard copies
This
if
is
you
what
want to share
we'll
it.
be looking.
Sorry, I didn't make some for everybody. I apologize for that. No, no, no. I like to come in with 50 copies and have some recycling later. So I apologize for that. Excuse me. Mike, thank you. Yeah, this is all. Yeah. All right. Just to make a brief statement that I would say, okay. So let me say this. So while I'm privileged to serve on the EDIC, privileged to be the chair, in my day job, I've been in public service in Massachusetts, local and regional government planning, community development, economic development, Brownfields work for about 38 years overall, 26 years with Brownfields. So I'm happy to, I don't know everything. So I'm going to give you a little disclaimer. If I wanted to set this up in such a way to give you 7 statements that if local officials had asked me in the day job, there's no copy of this. This is just my, no, there's just my notes to read my speech. And then give it to Lori to put it in, which she already has it. This is how I would explain Brownfields to anybody. For those of you that may or may not know, Montezut Regional Planning Commission has 22 cities and towns. It has a region from Air to Athol. So we get called out and we deliver a lot of planning, and sometimes we have to answer Brownfields questions. So this is what I would say to other people. 7 points really quickly. And then I'd like to hear from the members on Brownfield's topic. And then please, we'd like to hear from you and try to answer questions. So there's no doubt in my mind that every Brownfield needs to be addressed by the appropriate entities and organizations. That's 1. 2, typically a community that wishes to address Brownfield assessment and cleanup tasks acts as the cheerleader and assembles all appropriate parties to the table to address Brownfield cleanup tasks. Should be Brownfield's assessment and cleanup tasks, really. 3, it's highly unusual that a city or town will take ownership of a contaminated property and then assemble the funding to assess, clean up, and redevelop the site into a new use. This is the responsibility of the private sector. However, yes, for the record, redevelopment authorities, kind of like our fraternal twin, and economic development and industrial corporations in Massachusetts have redeveloped brownfields. So it's not like they don't do it either. Item 4, communities that do take ownership of contaminated properties must have the funding for the human resources or consultants to move a brownfield from inactive status to a fully functioning and reuse site. You got to have the resource, people, consultants, dollars, and then more dollars. As far as I'm aware right now, the town of Templeton has neither the required plan. You also need a plan. It's like, what are you going to do? The financial resources or the human resources or consultants to take on any brownfield site in this community. I'm saying that because this EDIC exists now, and hypothetically, it could address this issue with a contaminated property, an old gas station or whatever. We don't have the resources to do it because we have no money to hire somebody, and you need staff, you need bodies, and you need other things. Last point. But we'll get there. I should have written that first, but we'll get there. 7, if Templeton wishes to take ownership of any brownfield property, be sure that it does not take ownership of a property without first discussing the proposed action with the United States EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, Region 1 office. They're in Boston. Taking ownership of such a property may eliminate the town's ability to obtain federal grants from the EPA. As once the town takes title to a property, it is now in the chain of responsibility and may be forced to clean up the site, and we have no money to do that. So I just want to kind of set the stage and just a little education about a brownfield and what we do. And that's not to say that we shouldn't address this very important issue, because it should be addressed. Whatever site address you throw at us tonight, or we talk about. Does anyone want to say or ask questions about brownfields or stuff, or you just want to, Liz or Mike or Steve, or say anything, please do. And then I'd like to, if it's okay with you, ask the audience to ask questions or provide comments and have a good sounding board meeting.
What? If I may first.
Please, Liz, yes, please.
So I want to start by, I think it's important that we understand that I think I can confidently say that if not the entire community, a good portion of the community considers our brownfield site in town, the major one, to be of a concern to everybody.
Mhm.
You know, it's been around for a long time. I've heard through the grapevine that there have been a lot of health issues around that site, and that the people are very concerned. And I want to say that up front. The next thing I want to say is that if you could highlight it again, that you said that if a municipality takes possession of a site,
Mhm.
then they become responsible for that cleanup.
We could be in the chain of responsibility, which has been drilled into me for 26 years from the EPA. Yes. Is that what you're talking
Yeah.
about? Okay.
And that's, and I want to make sure I understand that,
Yeah.
because I think there's some confusion of what is out there, because
Mm-hmm.
I think some people are saying, no, the town doesn't have responsibility. And what I'm hearing you say is it
It's possible
It's-
to likely,
possible to like,
which we have to verify on anything we might look at.
right?
Yes.
So I just want everybody to understand the potential financial ramifications to this community and the risk that we have. I'm not saying it's a good idea. I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I'm saying everyone needs to be aware of what the risk is. And I think that's what I heard you say.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. And well summarized. Thank you.
Okay. And it is, I know there's been a lot of work done out there. I know from everything I've seen, there's more work that they're doing out there. I think we as a community need to be very cautious about any plans for that particular site.
Sure. Sure.
And I'll probably have to come back to me, but that's where I
That's
wanted to
okay.
start.
And may I add to that, not just one site, because we have multiple brownfields in the community. Most communities have multiple brownfield sites. If you've got an old gas station that there hasn't been gas in 50 years, it's a brownfield, because the definition of a brownfield is where there's a perception of contamination or it's real. That's one. Two, where the site is underutilized or abandoned. So once you make it through one test, you go to the other. So I remember when the law passed, when the federal law for brownfields passed in 1998, and we went to training in 1998 to figure out what was a brownfield. Almost anything was a brownfield. Somebody throws out a bucket of paint on Hubbardston Road on a piece of parcel, all of a sudden there's contamination possibly. So, wow, it's really amazing. Can we ask Mike and then Steve if they have anything to say? And then if you want to go ahead. And then
The goal for this evening
Yeah.
is.
my goal was to get it on the agenda,
discussion, just a primer to start it.
just to start it, because
Okay.
let me tell you really why I put it on the freaking agenda. Because typically redevelopment authorities and EDICs in Massachusetts are presented with this issue at some point in their lives. Gardner Redevelopment Authority has done a great job over the 30, 40 years in developing and redeveloping properties. Well, if it's an old school building and there's mercury in the little sensors in the fluorescent bulbs that were there in the 70s, that's a brownfield. I mean, but there's a lot of good history out there and a lot of good entities have done a lot of good things. But they have resources, they have money, they have, an entity with years of experience in finances, so on and so forth. Here's what I noticed over the last summer, or maybe 6 to 12 months, is that there's a lot of discussion, but I'm sorry, I don't look at all the public meetings hardly at all. I don't know if anybody's taken the discussion and said, let's talk to our freaking neighbors. By the way, folks, for the record, I can see the Templeton Stewart Waters Tower out of my living room window, so I get it. And it concerns me because, it's a football field away. So I understand the issues. But also what I noticed is that we have people in the world, thank goodness for the internet, because people can participate more. I'm assuming there might be some people in the chat function I'm going to ask later at the end.
Not right now.
Not right now. Okay, I can't tell what it says. Thank you, Mike. But the reality is that we're not going to solve these problems when people talk at their keyboard and send a comment to a YouTube video on any topic. And we need public discourse. And the real reason why I asked this to be on the agenda, or ask my colleagues, we need public discussion. So let's have a public discussion. That's all it is. 38 years of public discussion. I just wanted to have a public chat with you people. That's why.
Yeah.
That's why.
5 people are watching on YouTube, but
Okay.
there could be plenty of people watching on
Late.
cable. Yeah.
Oh, cable access. As
And
well.
find it out and
Right,
listen to it afterwards.
right.
You'll have many more.
Yeah.
Tomorrow.
Then they'll look more later.
Yeah.
And that's great. And thank goodness government has cameras and microphones on local officials now. Because, when I served at a different capacity in this town, there wasn't a camera in the room. Nobody came in with a tape recorder. And you had to go to the meeting, and thank God we have that technology, but at the same time, we need public discussion. That's what I was. Anything else on this or before? Well, Steve, any questions? comments,
I
concerns?
echo what Liz says, and, I think it's important for people in the community to know what's going on. It's important for us to know what's going on
Yeah.
as an EDIC and where everything is at with the, with the site on Holman Street and other sites as well. And, we should be on top of this.
Yes.
So let's turn it over
Well said.
to people.
Mike, I'm going to ask you, because you've been chair, or you are chair of the select board, you've run a lot of meetings. If someone from the audience is asked, do they have to come up here and speak into that camera? I
If
don't
they
know.
don't come up there, then it's likely that people on YouTube or on cable station won't hear the question or the.
So we're going to.
It's better if they come to the microphone.
Come to the mic, sit there, and please just
Thank you,
state my name and address, just so we know who our neighbors are, something like that. Is that what you, I
Just-
want to
That's
go
what we
with
do.
practices of other boards.
That's what the select board does, is you come up, you sit in,
Got it.
in the happy chair.
All right.
Yeah,
All right.
and name.
Name and
address.
street, yeah.
I haven't run this kind of a part of a meeting since 1999, so I just wanted to make sure I'm following procedures and protocols. So I'm going to ask who wants to go first. About 12 people. Would you be so kind to identify yourself and come up and come up
We can.
and let's try to answer questions.
So my name is Jeff Hooper. I live at 58 Baldwin Drive in Baldwinville, Mass. I'm basically here just to get more educated on that piece of property that used to be the Stewart Furniture Complex. My understanding, and I'm just, again, I want to learn. My understanding is in 2004, the EPA came back and said that property had been cleaned. That's what I'm taking. They did it at a
Okay.
public meeting, and they came and said that. There is back taxes, I believe, owed on the property of 500,000.
I believe there's an amount. I
Correct.
don't know what it is. Mike, I defer.
You were stating, Mr. Eaton,
Sure.
that the town doesn't own the property then. But
Not to my knowledge.
technically, they own it
Okay.
to some extent only because back taxes are owed, correct?
They don't currently own the property. I was,
Period.
period. What I was told last week by the assessor. No, excuse me, the collector, get the right person, the collector, that the town administrator has started tax taking actions.
Initiated the
Foreclosure.
tax title foreclosure process. Right.
So Meg Valley purchased the land then, though? They purchased it 2 years ago in
That name
2022?
sounds familiar. I think I read that name on the property card. They bought it from the prior owner, whoever that was.
So how, I guess my question is, how was that property transferred if back taxes were never satisfied? to-
So this is a great banking question, and I can talk to the EPA cleanup question a little bit. If you have cash and you want to buy a piece of property from somebody else, whether it's a Subaru or a piece of property, and there's no bank financing, you can transfer title. Banks get squirrely if you go and get a loan to have a mortgage on a property, because they want a title, what they call in Massachusetts, they want to call not Title V. They want a 21E, which is a phase one environmental site assessment on the EPA. Okay, they want to see the properties clean. But if someone has cash or can write a check without bank financing, well, there's no one really, then the 21E or the environmental site assessment phase one isn't required. So that's basically how it works. And that happens a lot.
My understanding is that, and I come from a contractor's point of view.
Yeah.
So if I do a business transaction with somebody, I fix their window and they don't pay, I
Right.
put a contractor lien on the building.
Right.
They can't sell that property until they've taken care of any outstanding debts or liens.
Now I'm out of my area of expertise.
So
It'd be a
that-
lawyer or you or a tax title person to talk. I don't know. Can anybody speak to that issue about
Right.
liens?
When I asked that same question, because I'm going, what do you mean?
Go for it.
Right?
Go for
Right,
it.
and what I was told was that there is no double check. That titles can be, and this came from the tax collector. She said that the attorneys can do the paperwork. This is what I was told, all right, I'm not an attorney, I'm not, she said, nope, it can be done. I said, how could this possibly happen? And it
But-
doesn't happen within this building. Yeah,
Because I think the
so-
municipalities in Massachusetts, only recourse is to initiate the tax title process. If back taxes are owed, to go after and try to get them some way in a payment system or taking the property and then flipping it, reselling it in an auction.
So I guess
I think that's the only town's recourse, the town's only.
I think going forward then, could we not get legal advice on how to proceed? Because at this point, having a plastic incinerator sitting there, from my understanding, that's what they want to do. This would be only the third in the entire world. I think it's probably not a good idea. You're maybe an eighth of a mile away from a state forest with waterway.
Yeah.
I've never seen any test results done on the property. After the
Speak to that, too.
EPA said that they had finished, but yet when I drove by there yesterday and took pictures, I would not, as a contractor, go in and move 2,000 yards of soil, cap it and put, abatement around it so it can't be leached back into the soil. That's not cost effective to pilot like that. My next question is, who's doing that now? Is that directly the EPA or
EPA.
is that
EPA,
EPA is doing that?
yes, they're doing another cleanup.
So do they owe, at this point, do they owe the town an explanation of why they left the site in 2004 saying it was all
I
set?
can answer a part of that, but not comprehensively, but I can let you know that the reason why the EPA showed up was because, and if somebody's got an eidetic memory on the newspaper article of that era, 03, 04, 05, please contribute. There was a wood frame constructed building on site, and there's obviously a cinder block building, and that there might have been an outbuilding or two, I don't remember. A lot of snow, roof collapsed in the largest of the factory building that we all know and love and remember as the old wood frame factory building. Shed load of asbestos in the building. The asbestos went airborne. Okay, so the cleanup by EPA, they spent $3 or $3.5 million to clean up the site. So the cleanup that the EPA did within 18 to 24 months, the 04 window, sir, their priority was the asbestos. To get the asbestos out of the building, and you're a contractor, you're going to know better. Imagine a building, going away.
Yeah.
It's a 100-year-old building. It's splinters and asbestos. So the only way to clean it up was to remove all of the lumber, all of the asphalt shingles, all of the asbestos. So they just did a dig and they shipped it somewhere else and it was buried somewhere else. I don't know where.
Gardner.
I don't know that. I'm just saying, I don't know that. That could have gone to New Jersey. I mean, there's places all over the United States.
Documented.
You got it in a doc. Okay, fine. I'd like to email me anytime. Okay. So, the reality is that there were also PCBs found on the site at the time. The EPA at that time, and it's all in the reports, there must be, since 1992, the EPA has been assessing that site on it, a call to be on it. They've been looking at it. So about 32 years. There's a list of reports that are public information on the DEP reportable sites lookup database. And it must be thousands of pages. When they found the PCBs, they said, okay, well, we'll do some dig and haul. We'll do some cap in place. Those are pretty much what you do with PCBs. It's a molecule that tends not to migrate very much, even in water. However, it can migrate. Now, fast forward from 04 to 2024. And for some reason, I don't know what triggered it. EPA is back on the site. They do more testing and they find more PCBs on the site that have maybe drifted in the sand. I don't know. I really, really don't know. But they find this saying, well, the PCBs that are on the site are now a threat to human safety. And that's why they were there in 2004, because the asbestos it went airborne, threat to human safety. They also back in 04, I remember vividly them testing the lawns on Elm Street in the neighborhood. And my wife and I were wondering if we were going to get a new front lawn. If did the PCBs that went airborne during the operation of the facility, the PCBs that went airborne, that were in the paints, the lacquers, the thinners that were burned off of the paint screens, they contaminated a lot of the properties, the residential properties. So a lot of people had dig and haul operations. A lot of people got new front lawns for the wrong reason, because there were PCBs in the soil. We missed out by about 5 properties. So basically, the threat to PCBs wasn't as high then as it is now. Why it took 20 years, we're going to have more questions than we have answers to. And that's all I really can tell you from, if you want to read the DEP for 4 Holman Street or 24, whatever it is, it's a lot of reading. I applaud you and learn all these things, but they are back on the site. The construction trailers are there. There was an estimate of something to clean up the site of the
The
PCB.
EPA is going to be at the select board meeting on Wednesday. So if
This
you have
Wednesday.
specific questions about that.
Oh, that's a great note. Thank you. I was on.
So the other question I
Yes,
had,
Jeff.
so the contractors' trailers that are on that property are the EPA's, not McValley,
That's how I understand it.
correct?
Yeah, those
Okay.
belong to the EPA for their office trailers. That's how I understand it.
I guess our biggest concern, At least my biggest concern is how do we get this out to the public so they're aware of what's going on and stop it. I mean, if they,
Stop what? What are you saying
The-
exactly?
the incinerator plant going.
That's
in-
outside of our jurisdiction. But it's a fair question. Please
Yes.
continue.
Well, if they, I mean, you're looking at the world today and the concerns of pollution and what's going on. There is a great possibility that they'll make the small pellets and they get airborne. There's nothing that company could do to isolate those from not being airborne. They have a mess in Detroit right now where they've almost filled a natural waterway with it because it just blew off of trucks.
We're gonna go one
I
at a
just
time,
wanted to
Tim.
ask him a question.
We're gonna, once you continue, and then you may have a question from
All
behind you.
right,
Okay, I want to be very clear about who's speaking tonight. I want to keep relative order with my neighbors. Okay, go ahead.
my concern is, I guess now is to look for the board's advice on what can we do? Because I just am recently hearing about this. And I don't understand how the property could have been transferred if it's polluted, first of all.
Okay.
Second of all, how it was purchased if there was outstanding debt of taxes on it. Technically, I would think because of the outstanding taxes, the town owns the property.
No.
Now, whether or not they want to maintain it,
Doesn't own the property. Let's be clear about that.
how do
The
you,
town of Templeton does not own
how
that
does the
property.
town get back?
It
what's
initiates the
supposed to now?
tax title foreclosure process and goes after the current owner to either, what happens really, they go to land court and the judge says, you guys gonna work out a payment plan? Or after 2 years, the town will end up with the property. I mean, that's basically what land court does.
So
So it
then
takes
we're-
time.
We're pretty much there then. If that's the case, then we should get legal counsel because it's been 2 years and there's, as far as I'm aware,
Yeah.
there's been no payment of the back.
So
taxes.
if you had have advice of the town getting legal counsel, so that would be up to the select board talking to
Okay.
its attorney.
Okay.
And not like when we get an attorney, we can't ask them some questions about, hey, talk to us about Brownfields, contaminated properties and land court and tax title. So we'll get counsel for this, because what you have here is two corporations. You have the select board of the town of Templeton, and you have the EDIC board of directors also. And we all want to work cooperatively. But
More than that, there's
was that? Sorry.
planning board, there's zoning.
Oh,
board,
yes. Oh, yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Recreation, it
Yeah,
is.
but he's on the issue of legal
There are a lot of
counsel.
voices.
You have one lawyer.
Yep.
Yeah, that's all I meant. You're right, Mike. There are many public officials to talk to. But yeah, Liz,
If I
shoot.
may,
Go ahead.
that my understanding is that before let's say things move in a direction that most people don't want them to move in, right? They can't get a building permit until they have paid the back taxes. That is the next stopgap, as I understand it.
Mhm.
I could be wrong, but I
No,
believe
that's what I've heard. I
Yeah.
hope it's true too.
is
So-
that, so if they were to attempt to start building, start doing something, right? They have to get permits.
Yes.
To get those permits, they have to go to
Development services.
development services, right? You can't get a permit without paying your back taxes.
Right.
Okay,
So there are
So-
checks and balances in the system to try to address these
that
issues.
does not, that may address the financial issue. It doesn't address the concern of what they'd be releasing into the air.
The use of the
The use
plant
of the-
use, whatever it is,
Yeah.
and manufacturing process.
So that's the next.
And I would say, to Mike's point there, planning board, this Concom, mass DEP permit will have to be obtained by the
Heavy, I
entity.
mean,
Good luck. I mean, for them to get a mass DEP permit. I mean,
Well, that was the other thing I was noticing that hearing that the EPA's there's no file number posted in public view, which I thought was kind of strange for the EPA.
a number for
Since they-
what though, Jeff? I'm sorry.
When you do a cleanup, you have to show that there's a permit for that cleanup.
Okay.
It's being done responsibly, it's being inspected.
So I think we're a little ahead of that
Contaminants.
timeline, the permit.
Well, they've
I
already,
don't know.
they should have it now because they're capping. So they've had to have had an inspection.
Yeah.
And showed the test holes, the results and.
Oh,
why
like the
they
boring
need to do
logs
it.
and yes.
And now they piled the dirt, they capped it, they have to show that they've done their due diligence to
Yeah.
keep it from getting in, back in the ground, the waterway.
I understand you.
Now they have to prove
Yeah.
where that's being trucked to. And my understanding is the closest one is Connecticut. There could be a new one now.
Yeah,
That's
who
going
knows?
back years.
Yeah, they're-
But they
yeah,
have
right.
to go to Connecticut, it gets weighed, leaving the site, gets weighed there. The idea is to track it all, is to make sure that we're not dumping it in somebody's
No, I
front
better
yard. It's
understand what
fill.
you're saying. My gut is that two things. One is, it's probably on the Mass DEP reportable sites lookup, because the EPA floods the DEP with documents and they upload. So you can track the only reason I know about what's going on is about the EPA, because I went to the Mass DEP about 2 months ago and I said, oh, they're gonna start cleaning up soon. And this is the dollar amount, and this is this, and this is that. So I learned, I mean, that's my source of information. For what it's worth, if you contact the EPA, and I can give you an email address, if there's nothing on the Mass site, Mass DEP site, you want to get something from the EPA directly, I can put you in touch with a person to provide documents to us or the select board, and you can create a webpage and just hang things if you want, whatever. So overall, your point is public information should be made more public if we can. And that's another reason why when Mike asked me, why is the Brownfield thing on the agenda? This is why, the public discourse. What are the questions? And without, I have received some emails from 1 or 2 people. And it's like, this should just be at a public meeting. It's just that simple. Because people have questions.
It's
We'll
just,
tell you if we have an answer. We'll tell you if we don't. We'll let you know.
the other thing that's really disheartening is the fact that how few people know in the town, how little advertisement, even if we couldn't do anything,
Mhm.
we live here, we pay taxes, so it should have been in a newsletter
Yep.
Submitted to everybody. I put up a garage. All the abutters had to be informed that I was doing it, so
Oh,
that
right,
if they said
right.
I couldn't do it or I could do it. Well, it's a little bigger than a garage,
Yep.
you know?
No, your point's well taken. Communication could be better. There's no doubt about that. Terry has asked to ask you a question. Terry, you want to ask a question, Jeff?
So when you say the plastic, what did you call it?
They're beads, they're
The
small
beads, that's
yes.
like feedstock, yeah, that they want to bring in 50 tons to start through the railway and then increase it to 300 tons of those beads. Just to
Well,
answer your question. Is
well,
that-
Actually, my understanding, and I like to be educated. My understanding looking into it is they're gonna truck in or rail in raw material. So your
It's
plastic bottle,
feedstock,
right? And
not
then they're-
bottles, feedstock.
and
the
then they're-
beads.
Okay,
I-
conclude this and then we're going to move on
Yeah,
because this is out of our realm of
That,
jurisdiction.
that is possible.
End use of the
Either
property
way-
has nothing to do with us.
Right, either way, it's not a good thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I got you burning in my head right there.
So
Yes,
again,
thank you for
all the
coming.
time. I really appreciate it. And please share this with the other members of the groups, please.
And
And-
remember, the select board's gonna be talking about the EPA part of it on Wednesday.
Yeah, I'll definitely be there.
Okay.
And again, thank you for all your time. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you for yours. You volunteered. Thank you. Okay. Yes, ma'am, you want to come up and tell us who you are? Because honestly, I'm sorry. I know Terry and that's about it.
Well,
I've
while
been working out of
she's
town. Yes.
getting situated.
Yes, sir.
There are some comments online, but unless, I would say, Mr. Chair, unless the person identifies themselves like
Yeah.
the same as
Same
all
procedure.
of the people here,
Yeah,
that we wouldn't address any of the comments.
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Steve, Liz, you okay with that? I mean, you should be identified if you want to be in a public discussion.
And all they have to do is identify themselves.
Yeah, John or
Because
Jane
I
Smith.
don't know.
Nope.
I don't know who Templeton Community Against Toxic Waste is. I would rather if they identify themselves,
Yeah, that's
that
fine.
way, if they want to contribute to the conversation,
Yep.
then we can acknowledge
Yep,
that.
I think we should do that. Everyone should be treated equally fairly. Name and, not your blood type though.
Okay.
Maybe your name.
I know that though.
You're better than me, ma'am.
I actually do it myself.
Oh, thanks.
Yes.
Okay.
Jane Thompson, I live on Winchester Street in Baldwinville. And I've lived there all my life, so I'm very familiar with everything that happened. And what was it, 2009? With the cleanup. I had the last,
2004-ish,
2004.
and it went on beyond that, yeah.
I had the most
Pretty.
PCB in my yard. They cleaned up my whole backyard.
You had the most?
Yes,
So you,
whole
you
neighborhood,
really,
yes.
you were at the heart, huh?
Mhm.
I'm sorry to hear that.
But my concern, and I know you don't have anything to do with foreclosing on the property or anything like that, and that'll be a discussion on Wednesday. My concern for this group is that we prevent industry that's going to pollute our airs, harm our environment and our health. And I don't see that anywhere in that edict chapter that I read.
It's not in there, and I'll tell
So-
you why, I'll speculate why,
Okay.
is because that's under zoning. The zoning, the uses of land
Mhm.
under the zoning districts in the town of Templeton are the purview of the town meeting. You approve what goes into a zoning district. We'll get into the Board of Health in just a second, and I want to ask my colleagues to chime in. So if there's something in the zoning for an industrial district, which they're purple on the map, if you've ever seen the zoning map, look at the allowed uses. And if you as a citizen or citizens talk to the planning board. We think those are noxious uses. They shouldn't be allowed. Also, I would ask you if you wish to communicate to the Board of Health. The
Okay.
Board of Health regulates heavily on noise disturbances, noxious fumes, all that kind of stuff. If a landfill smells, that's a favorite topic of the Board of Health in Fitchburg concerning the Westminster operation. So those are your two avenues. So I'm telling you, because as a citizen, you have the power, the authority to say at town meeting floor, we got to do it. But to lead up to there, you want to talk to the Board of Health and the planning board and talk to any other local official you want to too. But that's where you get the most results. Hopefully that helps you.
It does. yeah,
Okay. Doesn't help you today, but hopefully it'll help you in the
well,
future.
no. But,
Yeah.
when you have your market analysis and they say, oh, well, you should have industry in here, factories and,
Yeah.
they're going to pollute the air.
Right, right.
So it's not up to you at all to put anything in writing stating that they cannot come into this.
So the EDIC
Mhm.
will soon engage a consultant that will come up with an economic development plan. And these comments are very helpful. And that plan, once it gets drafted at the 90% stage before it goes final, or the 50% stage, or both, the planners, the EDIC will be in this room to ask for public input on what types of industry we should have as a community, what types of businesses overall. Because industry can mean
Biotech.
which bluntly, yeah, okay, that's aside. But biotech can be a lot more damaging than what we're talking about. Yes, it can.
Depends on what
really-
it is.
Yeah, but we're never gonna see biotech here. It's just not gonna happen. The reality is that there are industries that can be polluters and there are industries that if you're gonna make 50 alpaca yarn mittens every week in a facility in the town. Yes, I picked on you a little bit to pull you in.
It's okay.
But the reality is that there are some that don't hurt the environment at
Mhm.
all. So I think the four people up here plus Vicky, we're all very conscious and aware of, the dirty and the not so dirty. Because I don't think anybody in town is looking for the smokestacks anymore. Quite frankly, very few places in Massachusetts are looking for smokestack industry that emits stuff.
But that's what the plastic industry has.
And not all the time. Because I've been in a lot of plastic factories that emit nothing at all. So this particular use sounds like it has a
does.
byproduct.
Yes.
That I'm not familiar with. It
Yes.
sounds like it does. I'll take your word for it. But
It
there,
does.
when they used to make the pink flamingos at Union Products in Leominster, there wasn't plastic waste. It was back into the machines. And so they didn't have that byproduct. So we have to be careful. There are also about 3, 5, or 7,000 classifications of businesses in the nation. So we're not going to have a zoning bylaw that addresses all 7,000 because we have to trust the Board of Health regulations and the state regulations and DEP and EPA to balance. It's like a team effort to make sure you get the right types of it. But your message about non-dirty is clear. I don't think there's anybody in the community that wants dirty
We've
stuff.
already been through it. A lot of people have died from cancer.
Yep. Yep.
From neurological disease and.
Especially in that neighborhood.
We can't prove that that's what it's from.
Right.
But there were young people as well in the neighborhood that have died.
Well, PCBs aren't good.
Right.
And they're still there. And there's a no build zone on that property, the former Temple Stewart property. It has a fence around it and it's all green, but no one's allowed to tread on it or build on anything on it. And the town has within its power, if the town ends up taking the property, we could have soccer fields there. You don't have to have industry. You can do other things.
Well, I was
So
told
we
it
have to
wasn't
think about-
cleaned up.
Yeah,
You could have something there, but you couldn't have, for example, residential area. with
residential's
children.
verboten. Yeah, absolutely. You could do commercial or industrial.
Right.
Or when I was in Lowell, what they did before I got there, where they had a Brownfield site and it was a lot dirtier. I don't remember what it was. And it was big. And then ultimately, the city of Lowell found money, pulled state, federal grant money and local money, so however they did it. And they capped the site with 6 inches of pavement, bituminous concrete, and 6 inches of loam. And then however many inches of seed, grass seed, and it's soccer fields. So you can actually create green space on a brownfield. So there's
Really,
a
if
lot
the
of
town
opportunities.
foreclosed on this property, then they
Well-
really wouldn't have to clean it up.
Then you got to find the money to figure it out. I mean, I don't know that.
Mhm.
I don't want to speculate.
One other question.
I'm
I
gonna
thought
make
we
sure
had a
she has
bylaw.
all her questions, Terry. Okay.
I thought we had a bylaw that said we could not bring polymers into this town.
I do not know that if it's true or not.
20 polymers is listed in chapter 220 for the landfill.
And
A
all plastic,
landfill,
all plastic is polymers.
right? But if we're talking about you can't bring them into a landfill, that's not,
Well, it didn't quite say that, but just said,
she's saying it, okay, Terry,
It might
Terry, we're
say-
gonna have you next
okay,
because I can't keep going back and forth, and I want to give these people their,
That's all I had.
yeah. It's been a pleasure meeting you.
Thank you.
Winchester Street,
Yes.
my,
Can I?
yeah, oh, Steve, go ahead.
I know that the Board of Health is very interested in forming a bylaw of some sort to regulate plastics recycling
Okay.
or
Oh, that's
all
right.
kinds of recycling. And they had a meeting like this with some area residents. I think some of you were here for that.
When is their next meeting? do you know?
I'll tell you in just a second. They usually meet once a month on a Monday. We're in September, right?
Yes.
Yeah, just a little
Board of
bit.
Health on the 23rd.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for coming tonight.
30 right here.
If I
Actually,
haven't
7
said it,
p.m.
thank you all for taking your time tonight to leave your homes to do this.
time was that? September 23rd at 7 p.m. Right here, Board of Health.
Cool.
I
Sorry,
would
you want to come
check
up and say
the-
some stuff?
I would check the town's website and see if it's on the agenda or call Development Services, but I know that they are trying to work on something.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Hi, Terry Griffiths. She's holding my hand.
You told you? Oh, okay.
Not as actual as I
You'll
used
have
to
to,
Okay, I didn't,
I
I know
just-
Terry and Julie, but okay, I apologize. The other folks, I'm sorry.
Traveling roadshow.
Traveling roadshow.
We're good.
oh,
So to reiterate, we're not going to talk about a potential end use on a
no.
site. We're going to talk about Brownfield in
I'm
general.
just gonna give a
Please go
little bit
ahead.
of how it played out.
Oh, and Julie,
20,
Farrell.
yeah.
thank you all. Thank you both. Thanks.
So
Mike.
I'm just gonna give a little bit of how it transpired for me for 24 Holman Street and a little bit of what I know up till today. I'm not gonna say everything that I know. If you want to get a good accurate history, Jeff Bennett asked that there be that be brought to the select board meeting. It's in 2022. May 25th, 2022 on TCTV. And at the meeting time, 2:25:30 is the beginning of the discussion about advanced recycling.
Wait a minute. We're not going to talk about
So if
end
they
use
want a
of a property.
history.
We're not talking about that. We're talking about brownfields globally.
Yeah.
What's not on the agenda tonight is to talk about a potential end use on a
No.
site that's a
Oh,
brownfield.
so
You're deciding to talk about the controversial plastics
Okay, so
facility. We're not-
I
I'm
thought
just
they
telling you,
wanted
Jared,
history.
Terry, we're not going to talk about it
Oh,
because that's out of our jurisdiction. It's not on the agenda.
right,
We
well,
just can't talk
there's
about
also a paper in Lori's office. There's a whole box of information open to the public on that property. And in it, there's a letter from
it. Okay.
the former Board of Health agent to the EPA at the time, asking if they take the property by tax title,
Mhm.
if they would be responsible for the cleanup. And the EPA at that time said no. If they take it
If
by
who would be
tax title.
responsible? By the town?
The town
Okay.
wouldn't be responsible.
This is why I was careful before, because I've heard the EPA
So
say
there's
both,
I-
yes and
Lori's
no.
Office is closed,
Yeah.
but there's a copy of it. in
That's good to
both
know.
of
I
the
wanna see- I wanna
originals
see
in
that
Lori's
letter.
Office, there's a copy in Adam's office.
But again, we're outside of brownfields, but it's
So-
good to know about the tax title that one EPA person said that at that point in time, brownfields laws change. So I don't know how old that letter is, and that may be true, and it may not. I don't know. But we can get
So you don't want
current
to talk
taxes.
about,
Talk about
you
brownfields.
don't want to talk about McValley at all.
It's not in the agenda.
Gonna-
It's out of our jurisdiction. We're not talking about
I
it.
just have all the information, as far as when land court, they already went to land.
We don't want to talk about it. We're not going to. If you want to talk about McValley, go to the select board, the planning board, permitting officials. We're not involved in the permitting process.
Oh, yes, sorry.
But if you have something else on brownfields, that's why we're here tonight.
Well, it was brought up.
Because that's not the only one in town. So I'm hoping to have a global discussion.
Right.
Yeah. Julie, go ahead.
So.
Nice to see you again, by the way.
good to
It's
see
been
you.
too long. I'm sorry.
Been in and out of town a lot.
Okay.
All right, under the order that created EDIC,
Yes.
under definitions, section 4, it says economic development area, any blighted open area or any decadent area
Mhm.
as respectively defined in section 1 of chapter 121B,
Mhm.
which is located in the municipality in a zone for general or restricted manufacturing uses
Mhm.
or for general or waterfront industrial uses, whether restricted or not, and within which there are not more than 45 dwelling units.
Mhm.
Now, would that have any impact on this
On-
parcel on Holman Street?
I have no idea. I mean, you're reading a sentence of a definition out of context of,
Well,
I don't know. I mean,
Right.
I'd need a lawyer here to help decipher that for me. And if let me put it this way, if it has relevance to the EDIC,
right,
it would have to have relevance to the EDIC if the EDIC was involved in redeveloping a brownfield site.
Mr. Chair,
So go ahead.
I think the EDIC, you know, whatever the order would say, we're gonna ask for an economic development plan that would have anything, any kind of recommendation on what we could do to improve the conditions in Templeton. So whether it fit, whether a specific parcel fit or not,
Yeah.
we're still gonna look at the plan to be able to say, what are we doing in the community?
Right.
It's not, you know, the economic development plan, I do not think, you know, Vicky's not here tonight. I do not think that we meant to be surgical with our
No. That's not what an ED
economic
plan
development
does.
plan.
It's very broad
That it
based.
was going to be broad-based and
Yeah.
be able to say, here are
Right.
our options, here are the conditions.
Yeah.
Here are the potential properties and otherwise.
Yeah.
But I mean, whether it fit into a box, you know, whatever box or not, we're still gonna make a recommendation.
We could speculate on that all night.
Absolutely.
And we're not going to because we don't have a plan, so we can't address what we wouldn't do yet until the plan is done. But this
If it was
is,
illegal, like if you know, if our plan came back and said, hey, you know, you have a bunch of properties on this part of town, you know, this is what you possibly could.
Right.
You know, if we can't make illegal recommendations or
No.
otherwise, so ultimately, any project that we wind up saying to the town, we want to go forward with this,
Right.
it goes to town meeting.
Yeah.
And the people make the decision and say, we like that idea, we think you should prioritize that and go with that one. Or we hate that idea, we don't like what you made a recommendation on at all.
right,
Now,
right,
that
either
would
way.
have to be for town-owned land, though, right?
Anything,
No.
any project that the EDIC comes back with, the ultimate, the plan that we're gonna have delivered by MPRC is, MRPC
You got it.
is gonna be our vendor for that. That plan is gonna make recommendations and then we're gonna bring it to town meeting to say, this is what the EDIC
Right.
would like to do. And here are the possible funding sources for it. You know, we're not gonna get all of the plan done within, you know, a calendar year or otherwise, but we could say, this is what we plan to do over the next 5, 10, 15.
It's gonna, a plan is a broad-based document, like
Yep.
a master plan for a town that's on the website to say, you know, we're gonna prioritize these 10 things. And certainly, I think Brownfields is gonna be globally in there, obviously, because everybody wants these. However, you know, it sounds like you're talking about what that part of what that sentence or that definition is. It says over here in the other part of the statute, 121B is redevelopment authorities. That's where we defined as the legislature 50 or 75 years ago, what a substandard property is that makes it eligible for an EDIC or redevelopment authority to go after. And we make it eligible for EDICs and redevelopment to do that. But what you ultimately plan on doing and what could be done, I mean, that's years away. I mean, and we will only really discuss those things when, you know, we have a project that we're promoting or we're the cheerleader on. If we have funding and human resources to redevelop or develop land, that's what redevelopment authorities and EDICs do. If every time a planning board gets a plan in front of it for something for a commercial industrial use, we're not going to comment on that unless we're asked to, unless we decide we should. So that could go anywhere. And that's why, you know,
Okay,
pulling one definition out of something is way down, is too far down the road, I think. And I've known you too long to not look in the eyes and say, I don't know how to answer that because
Okay.
it's just too far down. But the plan, the broad-based plan goes before the town at town meeting and says, is the plan okay?
We would be foolish if we did not consider properties like that.
Right, absolutely, but we're not there yet.
And that plan,
Yeah,
we were planning to have it in front of town meeting
Mhm.
in the spring town meeting.
okay. So one of my other concerns is that there are other brownfields in town,
Yes.
specifically on Mill Street. It's part of the American Tissue whole package.
yes.
There's a ton of land and parcels and property off of Mill Street
Mhm.
that would also be contaminated. A long time ago, it used to be an asbestos factory,
Okay,
okay?
before it was a paper mill, Julie,
Before it was
for
a-
context, thank you. I was unaware of that, thank you.
So there are other, so if that could be part of your plan,
Mhm.
just so that you can identify it and know what it is,
Yeah.
okay?
Great recommendation.
Yeah, it is a very good recommendation. And when we talk to the consultant about what we put in the plan, as far as recommendations, I can see the recommendation that we should address brownfields as appropriate. And I don't see the plan naming addresses. I don't, one of 5 members. I may be outvoted, but the reality is that, because when you do a plan and you name 30 addresses or 3 or 2, the plans don't change that much. Typically, boards and committees, we're not so good at amending our plans. So it's dangerous to put a list of properties in. But that can be more in a policy document later,
Types
or
of properties, because there could be many
types of properties.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Certainly the ones that you're mentioning are all of a type of property where it's been virtually abandoned.
Yeah, but here's the bottom line. Finally, Templeton has an economic development entity to address the issues. And that's a good thing. I don't think we're going to sit up here and not look at brownfields and greenfield development and industrial parks and promoting more restaurants. So we have a very broad brush job description, if you will. So hopefully that helps a little bit more. I hope. We want to be helpful.
And I have one other unrelated question.
Sure.
You mentioned like anything can be considered a brownfield.
Virtually.
Virtually.
That's what we were trained in 98.
When you mentioned the light bulbs and the mercury, I was
Yeah.
thinking about Baldwin Elementary School being
Yep.
redeveloped for
Sure.
housing.
Sure.
Was that considered as a brownfield?
I have no idea because I'm not familiar with the project and who did what when. And you're probably talking about many meetings between the developer and the town or minutes I've never seen in my life. I have
Okay.
no idea if anybody declared it a brownfield or not.
Right.
But the reality is that, I'm comfortable saying here, after spending a life in public service and dealing with brownfields for 26 years, that meets the federal definition of a brownfield. Sure, it does, because it's abandoned or underutilized. Whether it's a perception or the reality of, I don't know if there's really contamination there or not, but there's at least perception and it is abandoned. So it meets the federal definition. Well, that was up in conversation among the developers in the town. I would defer to everybody's minutes for the last, 5 years? CPA, Board of Selectmen, and so on and so forth. So I don't know. But smells like it is.
Right.
I have one last thing. Like
Sure.
you mentioned, I think at the select board meeting about we're a green community. So do you take that into consideration as you're writing up your plan, what that means?
Sure, that can help. So the green community is about the bottom line, green communities designation, now that Templeton's been designated as a green community. So now we can get grant money for furnaces and light bulbs and EV cars and stuff that emit less emissions than we used to. So that brick and mortar money, now that we have the plan in place and we've been designated by the state, so now you can get some money. And I think you've gotten money for a furnace or a car. or
But it
something like
doesn't
that.
have anything to do with.
Not
development,
directly with
just
brownfields,
material.
not really. It's kind of it's another program the feds and the state have come up with to provide money bluntly for a lot of towns that can't afford, in some cases, outside of Templeton, the old school boiler that eats 40,000 gallons of oil a year. Wouldn't you want a gas or biomass or photovoltaic or something? That's what that program's about. But, even the economic development plan, I don't even know if it would touch on green communities. I don't see the relevance, but it might. Who knows?
We certainly wouldn't make a recommendation that wasn't a sustainable, we would.
Right, that's true.
Destructive to the
Yeah.
the environment or
Yeah.
otherwise. So I mean, to answer Terry's question, we would absolutely promote sustainable green projects.
Well,
building
better
that
said.
project.
Better said. You ever hear of the phrase brownfields to brightfields?
Yeah.
Meaning you take a brownfield, you put on a solar farm and that way, ideally, it's all capped in place or it's dig and hauled away. There's no more contamination there. And you have phytoremediation, you put a bunch of solar panels and you have pollinator plants. The world it's incredible what you can do with brownfields. But make no mistake, you need money.
And I don't think Templeton has
Money.
And I didn't
I'm not
mention
going
human
to go
resources
there.
yet.
And with that, are you done? I'm not gonna go there, but there's
Thank
money
you.
out there if you want to do the work.
Not enough.
Julie, were you?
No.
Depends on who you
Online,
talk to
an
and-
online commenter, Rachel Herman, said that we didn't fully answer your question. Do you feel that we've answered your question, the first one you had about the EDIC order?
the EDIC order. Yeah, probably not, but
Okay,
it's okay.
we can look into it, like
Yeah.
a better answer for
Yeah.
that.
And
Yeah.
Julie, honestly, feel free to email. I think my email address is up there. Email me the question.
All
I
right.
can take it to the board next time and say, let's better answer this. We want to be,
Right.
Within your.
we want to be, within the EDIC's charter, if you will.
Yeah.
Because if I missed something too,
Like right now, I think, the hot item is 24 Holman Street.
absolutely,
It is.
yes.
And part of the problem is that when Temple Stewart first started, all those houses weren't there.
Mhm.
And now the whole neighborhood is grown up around it.
Right.
So, I know you don't do zoning, but, should that really be an industrial site?
Mhm.
you know, with all of those homes there,
Mhm.
you know, which
Could
is
be,
a
you could have
question.
very clean industry there. So not all industry is bad.
I'm not saying that,
Okay.
okay, but I'm saying.
That's,
that-
I didn't take it that way.
Right.
Yeah. And that's a very good point, because if you have a widget making operation on a site that has great highway access, and the only rail access that this economic development guy can think of from here to Athol, his day job territory,
Mhm.
it screams for widget making. However, if you don't have a low light, maybe we do have a low light sky compliant, night sky compliant bylaw have to lower your lights. But if you're gonna have a widget making, bring in raw materials, you're gonna deliver widgets. So you're gonna have truck traffic. Well, maybe the neighborhood doesn't want that. So maybe the area should be rezoned. Okay, so that's between you all, or
Right,
neighbors and
and-
citizens, and,
right.
and to write to planning board and saying, maybe we should do this. And if you read chapter 48, section 5 on how to amend a zoning act, one person can go to a town meeting and propose something. You gotta follow some rules,
Yeah, you do.
you know? My day job regional planning agencies in Massachusetts, we don't do it. We can propose zoning on your town meeting floor, as long as we hold a public hearing. It's amazing what you can do to amend zoning bylaws. So be aware, I mean, just because something is purple and it says industrial, it could be that soccer example I explained earlier. It's the underlying zoning could always be industrial or something else. Or you make it permanently recreation. Now, recreation, soccer fields, a lot of soccer moms and dads, right? Where they're gonna park. So whatever happens there, we need the neighborhood involved. And this is the issue with brownfields in general. What happens on Mill Street? I don't know what's gonna happen behind Lee's Hot Dog Stand. I really, really don't. But that's only 2 of the 14 American Tissue Mill properties, or the former, whatever. Well, those aren't the only ones. So that's why I want to say brownfields, let's talk about it globally. And we need to address it globally. We really, really do, because we're a piece of it. We're part of a cog, right? Planning board, board of health, you know, building permit, tax title, are they gonna take it or not? We can advise and plan and maybe do some projects in about 5 or 10 years, but we need one.
And Mr. Chair.
Yes,
you know,
sir. Go ahead.
What we don't want is for people to disappear, you know, come to one meeting, disappear, and not be a part of the conversation. Because, you know, dropping a bomb on, you know, whether it's procedural or not, on town meeting floor is only gonna confuse the situation.
Absolutely,
We've
absolutely.
gotta have a better conversation.
Yes.
So by the time it gets to town meeting, it's already been
Vetted.
understood.
Public hearings.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, a lot of public input.
We wanna come with
Yes.
a solution, not a problem.
Exactly.
That didn't happen the last go round. There wasn't enough conversation. There wasn't enough education. And that's part of it. I was very happy.
On what topic are you talking about? Because I'm a little lost. I'm sorry.
Sorry,
That's okay.
the bylaws and everything
Mhm.
around how we as a community,
Mhm.
you know, all the different boards and committees and everything else involved, how we as a community are going to address our needs.
Yeah,
And our
yeah.
needs are, you know, we want more jobs in town. We
Mhm.
want more opportunity in
Mhm.
town. You know, we have some guardrails. People have guardrails of what is acceptable and what isn't
Yeah.
acceptable. And you have to look at the infrastructure and you have to look
Yes.
at all of these things. So, you know, there isn't one board, one committee, one group of individuals that you have to say, folks, go solve the problem for me. You know, it isn't. It takes a village,
Yeah.
folks. It just does. And, you know,
In Massachusetts, that's the unfortunate truth. And most of the vast majority of the country, you have county commissions, and you go to one county commission planning board and they do it all. But in here, if you're a developer, think about it on the other side. You want to develop, you know, a 10-home housing subdivision. It'll take you 2 years to go through the Massachusetts permitting process at a community. It doesn't happen anywhere else in the country. But this is the system we have. And we have multiple boards looking at multiple things. I mean, we haven't even mentioned Concom. So,
so it's all those things.
Yes.
And I think we all have the same sort of concerns. I believe we do. It's a matter of how we go about doing it, what risk the community is willing to bear, and what we want our community to look like and be. And this is part of it, is understanding. you know, whatever happens with any particular piece of property. We need a plan, you know, I'm sorry,
No,
the
you're-
7 Ps.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
said that an hour ago. We need a
Yeah.
plan. You need a plan on a property or a plan on a village or neighborhood plans. Can I, are you guys wound down? Okay, okay, in the transition, are there other people? Can I just see a hand if you plan to speak or are we done or, you know, have I frightened people away? I don't mean to do. Yes, please. What was your first name
I
again?
just have a question, Jane.
Jane. Hi, Jane. Yes.
Hi.
Shoot.
Can you get grants to clean up these brownstone properties?
Brownfields? Yes.
Brownfield properties?
Yes, you can get
Okay.
grants and loans and financing. Yes.
Can I have a grant writer?
Yes.
Okay, just wondered.
I've written Brownfields grants for 26 years. This is redeveloping a Brownfield site is the most complicated financial package versus we're going to build an industrial park on 100 acres of land that hasn't been touched since the agrarian days of the indigenous populations and the colonials of the 1600s. That's simpler, and Brownfields are more complicated because you need more multiple sources of funding. But outside of funding, you need staff. There's got to be at least a human being that spends full time on economic development in a community. And that's all they do. Sometimes you can say, oh, it's an economic development specialist and they can do some town planning, but you don't want to split the person. So my point is there's financing, there's human resources. You can hire consultants to do some stuff. Absolutely. But you need one person to push all those. It's like that one person's at the center of the spoke on a wheel of an old 10-speed bike. And they're what, 30 or 40 spokes? Because those are how many things that go into redeveloping a Brownfield site. So yes, it can be done. In the packet that went out, and if you go online, you can see on the Mass website about Brownfields. They have success stories. Please note, I think most or all of them are cities with staff. Not that towns can't do it, and not that towns haven't done it before. But with part-time officials, with no support staff, and, you know, your people are busy, you know, whether it's development services or town administration, everybody in between, they have jobs. So there are just, my point is, Jane, that there are a lot of components to it. It's financing and other things. So many things. I can tell you horror stories. You'd be here till midnight, and I don't want to do that to anybody. And I can tell you good stories too. I really can. There was a horrific, I will tell one story. I'm so sorry. There was a horrific fire in Lowell, 25 years ago? There was a mill that burned, you know, gone. The walls were still up. Today, that's a part of UMass Lowell. University of Massachusetts at Lowell. UMass Lowell has expanded into these brownfield sites. The old textile mills in Lowell. I hate to keep going back to Lowell because it happens elsewhere. You know, the vast majority of those old mills that were textiles. We've seen all the people in the 1800s, early 1900s, the kids, the child labor, throwing spindles in the looms and not losing their arms, ideally, hopefully, but they did. Those were redeveloped as commercial office space, this housing. But they had a market for it at $495. So you got to look at your market. We need a market assessment person. We got to look at our plan. We need a plan. We need a lawyer. You need a civil engineer, and then you need money, and then you need staff. And this is why I will share this with all of you now that it's a public meeting. This is why I have been digging my heels and cautioning so many people about, please don't push that until we develop a plan, you know, whether it's site by site or it's an economic development plan, because I know of no brownfield site in Templeton that has ever been addressed and redeveloped by the community. And it's just a whole other world. It can be done. It's not rocket science, but you need that one person plus millions of dollars. I would say that, you know, if all the departments were fully funded and you had 5 million to 10 million in the rainy day fund, okay, siphon off 5 million, give it to the EDIC and we'll go do the job. No, we're not, because I still need a body. We need a $200,000 budget for a person, a support staff person, and so on. So there's just so many components. But it can be done. It just takes some time.
And remember, the town hall is open 4 days a week, not 5. So, and I'm being a realist here. It is
We need that.
open 4 days a week, all right? The staff is you're 1 deep. The town is 1 deep. And
Each department.
for each
Essentially, yeah.
department, right?
Yeah.
There isn't backfills. And so when people want to talk about some of these things, and I'm saying, I believe it's expensive, right? These are some of the other things that people need to bear in mind and need to be able to support on town meeting floor. And so, thank you. I just wanted to add on.
No, that's
what
fine.
you're saying.
That's fine. Mike, please. Or
Just
Steve,
one more
both.
thing,
please.
so the templetonma.gov is our website. EDIC does have a page on there under town departments. So you mentioned trying to get a hold of you or otherwise, there is a general email box, edic@templetonma.gov, and each of us has a contact form.
Yep.
And the order that Julie was reading earlier is on there if people wanted to read what the EDIC was created for. I just wanted to put that out
That's
as a
great.
resource for everyone that came out here tonight and anyone that may be listening.
It's a really good point. Thank you, Mike.
Mhm.
This is a quiet bunch, but it's a tough topic. Are you sure you don't want to have any questions? You're, Mike?
I did
Steve,
want to,
Liz?
so
Please.
I had mentioned earlier just about in the interest of the online comments or otherwise. So the person did identify themselves. It's Rachel Herman would I'm going to paraphrase some of them. Wanted to make sure that we fully answered Julie's question,
Mhm.
calling for section 220 of our general bylaws for a rewrite. Makes a statement, we must stop any pollution that will harm public health. Just paraphrasing for some of them, other are just reactions to what others have said.
Mhm.
And if anybody in the community, if you have an accommodation request, please make that to the town. If there's any other consideration about any of the products, TCTV or otherwise, closed captioning, just make sure you're making that request to the town.
In advance of a meeting, so that
Correct.
CCTV can be prepared
Mhm.
to, or
Certainly,
Templeton
I have a
delivers.
comment on that. Captioning is not available on YouTube until a day after.
Okay.
Oh, thank you. I didn't even know that.
But in just making a reasonable accommodation request ahead of time.
Okay, thanks. I
Um,
didn't know that, because I've been looking at a lot of YouTube videos, like, where's the closed caption?
There's this closed captions there. I would have sworn, I'm sure you're correct, but if somebody had asked me, I would have said it was there as we're going through the meeting,
I've
but I
seen
guess
it.
not.
I've seen it sometimes, not
Oops.
It often
consistently.
doesn't populate for a day.
Okay.
That's really good to
you
know.
tonight.
Thank you. I learned a lot.
Maybe. in the
But
morning.
essentially that
Okay.
person,
Yeah.
the comments that we have on there,
Yeah.
I paraphrased some of them, but it ultimately boiled down to stop any pollution that will harm public health. I agree with.
Excellent comments. Thank you. And thank all parties for identifying yourself. We want to get those comments. We need those. If there aren't any other questions, comments, you have,
What does she?
yeah, we'll come get it from you. Sure. Thank you, Julie. No problem. You can leave it there. Thank you very much.
Names will be mentioned in the minutes as participants.
Yes, we'll add those to them. Okay. Quiet group. Ian, you got anything? Are you all set, sir? No? Oh, you're learning. Okay. All right. We're still in public session, but I don't know what, we have public comment officially and we have commissioners' comments, a board member comments, whoever, at the end of the agenda. So stay around before we adjourn. All right, stick around. Do any of the board members have anything else under the board comments that you want to bring up? Please, Mike, Steve, not in any order. Go ahead. I don't have anything. Go
I would
ahead.
just say great conversation and thank you all for being here. It's good that you give us the feedback
Mhm.
on this and ask questions. It's healthy and it's good for our community and we'll get through this together, I'm sure. And keep Templeton clean of PCBs.
Right.
Yeah.
Good point. Mike, anything? Any other comments under
No,
board comments?
came out and talked to us.
Okay, thanks. Liz, or anything else?
I just want to say again, thank you for your questions, comments, concerns. It's, it's important and we need to have healthy conversations like this where everybody, we try to address the concerns and understand that this is a process. It's difficult. This whole thing will be difficult. At least that's what I'm anticipating. And there are a lot of decisions that the community as a whole needs to make in whichever appropriate form it is. I know there's some things that people wanted to talk about tonight that just wasn't quite appropriate for OML and everything and where this particular board is in our process of our planning process, right? And it's just, we're a community and we need to understand that there are multiple sides of it. So thank you for your time and your effort, your questions, and your interest. Thank you.
I can't top that, so I'm not going to say anything. I really, really can't. Thank you all. Are you sure there's no one, did you have your hand up, miss, or you're all good? Okay. You were just, I thought you might be throwing me a Hershey's Kiss or something. Okay, I was hoping. Is there a motion to adjourn then?
Next
wait,
meeting.
wait.
Oh, next meeting. I'm sorry. I didn't
Next
look at the
meeting.
agenda.
It's already scheduled for October 16th.
Already scheduled for, oh, that, yeah, that's my wedding
Yeah,
anniversary.
you're winning it.
Yeah, I'll be here.
Yes.
Maybe I'll bring Tori. I'll probably bring her in a wheelchair. So that's it. Okay, if we resolve that, it's already set. Is it posted also?
Yeah, it's on the calendar.
Okay, Steve, I wasn't sure of your source. Thank you, Steve. It is posted.
It's the one
Um,
after that too.
You can set it up. Oh, yeah, and November 4th.
October 16, November 4, we meet at 6 PM for those of you who want to know or are interested. And thank you all again, really, for coming. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. Any discussion of the motion? I think we can just go to adjourn. We're probably tired. Steve, probably have to
Yes.
vote. Yes, Mike,
Yes.
Liz?
Yes.
I'll make it unanimous at about